Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Fluent Path English. I'm James.
And I'm Emily. Thanks for joining us today. James, have you ever tried gardening?
Oh, once or twice. But I have to admit, I didn't really know what I was doing. It's harder than it looks.
For sure. You need to understand the soil, weather, tools, and have lots of patience. And today's dialogue is about someone who's just getting started with gardening.
That's right. In this conversation, a woman announces her plan to grow her own garden, but the man she's talking to is pretty skeptical.
Yes, and you'll hear lots of casual phrases, some sarcasm, and vocabulary related to gardening.
Great. Let's listen to their conversation for the first time.
I've decided to grow my own garden.
What? You don't know the first thing about gardening.
On the contrary, I've been reading a lot of books about the subject.
Oh yeah? Tell me then, smarty pants. How will you go about setting up your garden?
Well, first I need to buy some things such as fertilizer, seeds, and tools.
What type of tools?
You know, the basics. A rake, shovel, spade, and a hoe.
Right. Well, it seems like you have all your bases covered. What's next?
I'll till the soil and then sow the seeds. I'll then add some fertilizer and voila! Gardening all done.
Well, good luck with your garden, especially considering we're in the dry season and it won't rain for the next 3 months.
That was a fun one. You can really hear the sarcasm in the man's voice.
Definitely. He's clearly teasing her, but she doesn't back down at all. I love that.
Yeah, she stays confident and even explains everything step by step.
And that last line? So snarky. Good luck with your garden in the dry season.
Classic. Okay, now let's break down some key expressions from the dialogue.
All right, let's start with the phrase garden.
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 The word garden can mean slightly different things depending on where you are. In British English, garden usually refers to the entire yard or outdoor area around a home. But in American English, garden more often refers to a space where plants are grown, such as flowers, vegetables, or herbs.
Right. So in American English, if you're talking about a general yard area, you'd say yard. But when you grow things like tomatoes or flowers, that's your garden.
And the activity of taking care of that space, planting, watering, weeding, is called gardening.
Exactly. In the dialogue, when she says, "I've decided to grow my own garden," she means she wants to start growing her own plants at home, probably vegetables or flowers.
Here's an example sentence. My grandmother spends every morning working in her garden. That means she's planting, watering, or caring for the plants in a dedicated area near her home.
Great. Let's move on to the phrase, not know the first thing about.
Not know the first thing about.
Not know the first thing about.
This expression means someone has zero knowledge about a topic.
Right. It's often used in casual or even sarcastic situations when you want to point out that someone really doesn't understand something at all.
In the dialogue, when the man says, "You don't know the first thing about gardening," he's telling her that she has no idea what she's doing.
Exactly. Here's an example. I don't know the first thing about fixing cars, so I always go to a mechanic. That means the person has no car repair knowledge at all.
All right, now let's take a look at the phrase, on the contrary.
On the contrary.
On the contrary.
This phrase is used when you want to strongly disagree with what someone just said.
In the dialogue, the woman says, "On the contrary, I've been reading a lot of books about the subject." She's disagreeing with the man's assumption that she knows nothing about gardening.
Exactly. She's saying, actually, I do know about it.
Here's another example. You think I didn't enjoy the movie? On the contrary, I loved it. That shows strong disagreement in a polite and clear way.
Great. Now let's move to the phrase, smarty pants.
Smarty pants.
Smarty pants.
This is a playful or sarcastic way to call someone overly confident or know-it-all-ish.
Right. In the dialogue, the man says, "Tell me then, smarty pants," to tease the woman after she says she's been reading gardening books.
It's not exactly rude, but it's definitely used in a joking or sarcastic way.
For example, "Okay, smarty pants, if you know so much, why don't you explain it to us?" It's something you might say to a friend who's acting like an expert.
All right, now let's look at the word fertilizer.
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 Fertilizer is a substance added to soil to help plants grow better. It gives nutrients to the plants.
In the dialogue, she says, "First, I need to buy some things such as fertilizer, seeds, and tools." She's listing the basic supplies needed to start gardening.
Right. Here's an example. You should add some fertilizer to the soil to help your vegetables grow faster. That means you're enriching the soil so the plants will thrive.
Great. Now that we've gone over those expressions, let's listen to the dialogue again and see if you can catch them in context.
I've decided to grow my own garden.
What? You don't know the first thing about gardening.
On the contrary, I've been reading a lot of books about the subject.
Oh yeah? Tell me then, smarty pants. How will you go about setting up your garden?
Well, first I need to buy some things such as fertilizer, seeds, and tools.
What type of tools?
You know, the basics. A rake, shovel, spade, and a hoe.
Right. Well, it seems like you have all your bases covered. What's next?
I'll till the soil and then sow the seeds. I'll then add some fertilizer and voila! Gardening all done.
Well, good luck with your garden, especially considering we're in the dry season and it won't rain for the next 3 months.
Listening again, you can really feel how casual and teasing their conversation is.
Yes, it's a great example of how friends joke around, sometimes with a bit of sarcasm.
And we got a lot of gardening-related vocabulary, too, like till the soil and sow the seeds.
Exactly. All right, now let's go over a few more useful expressions.
Let's start with the tools the woman mentioned in the dialogue. She said, "You know the basics. A rake, shovel, spade, and a hoe." So let's go over each one quickly.
All right, let's start with the tool, rake.
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 A rake is a tool with a long handle and many teeth. It's used to gather leaves, grass, or to level soil.
Next is the tool, shovel.
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 A shovel is a tool with a broad blade. You use it for digging, lifting, or moving materials like soil or gravel.
Then we have the tool, spade.
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 A spade looks similar to a shovel but has a flat, straight edge. It's great for digging precise holes or cutting into soil.
And finally, the tool, hoe.
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 A hoe is used to break up soil, remove weeds, and shape planting rows. Very useful for gardening. All right, now you're all set with the key gardening tool vocabulary.
Great. Now let's look at the phrase, "You have all your bases covered."
You have all your bases covered.
You have all your bases covered.
This means that you've thought of everything. You've prepared for all possible situations.
In the dialogue, the man says, "Well, it seems like you have all your bases covered," because she listed everything she needed for her garden: fertilizer, seeds, and tools. It sounded like she was fully prepared.
Here's an example. Before launching the product, the team made sure they had all their bases covered. That means they planned and prepared for all the details.
Okay. Next is the verb till.
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 To till means to break up and turn over the soil, usually with a tool, to prepare it for planting.
In the dialogue, the woman says, "I'll till the soil and then sow the seeds." She means she'll prepare the ground and plant the seeds. And by the way, sow the seeds means to plant them by scattering them into the soil.
Here's an example. Farmers till the fields every spring before planting new crops. That means they prepare the soil for farming.
All right, today's final word is voila.
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 This word is borrowed from French. It's used to show something is finished or has just appeared, like, there you go, or all done.
In the dialogue, she says, I'll then add some fertilizer and voila, gardening all done. She's saying the process will be complete at that point.
Here's an example. I just add some sauce and cheese and voila, dinner is ready. It's a fun and dramatic way to show something is done.
Great! Now that you know these expressions, let's listen to the dialogue one last time and see how many you can catch.
I've decided to grow my own garden.
What? You don't know the first thing about gardening.
On the contrary, I've been reading a lot of books about the subject.
Oh yeah? Tell me then, smarty pants. How will you go about setting up your garden?
Well, first I need to buy some things such as fertilizer, seeds and tools.
What type of tools?
You know, the basics. A rake, shovel, spade and a hoe.
Right. Well, it seems like you have all your bases covered. What's next?
I'll till the soil and then sow the seeds. I'll then add some fertilizer and voila! Gardening all done.
Well, good luck with your garden, especially considering we're in the dry season and it won't rain for the next 3 months.
All right, we're back. Hopefully, today's episode gave you some insight into casual, sarcastic English.
Yes. And if you've ever tried gardening, I'm sure you can relate to the challenges.
For sure. And even if you're not a gardener, today's dialogue had lots of fun and useful phrases.
Absolutely. And remember, sarcasm can be tricky to understand, but it's a big part of casual English.
That's true. It's all about tone and context.
All right, that's it for today's episode. Thanks for listening.
If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review.
We'll be back soon with more real-life English conversations.
See you next time.
Bye.